When Russia invaded Ukraine 2 years ago, the world froze in fear. It was the fear that this could easily escalate into a nuclear war and the United States would have to attack Russia. According to military experts, a direct attack on Russia by the United States is extremely unlikely. Why won't America attack Russia? This is the big question, and the answer is an event that was written almost 50 years ago. First, let me give you a brief background on the military relationship between the US and Russia. In both the First and Second World Wars, the US and Soviet Union were on the same side. Never had the US and Russia had cause to test their military might directly against each other. Back then, Russia, which was called the USSR, was a force to contend with, but not because they were technologically advanced. It was because the USSR was the largest nation in the world. And indeed, Russia still holds that title. The USSR relied on countries like France, Belgium, and of course the United States for the weapons and ammunition used in both the First and Second World War. The Soviet Union was weak industrially at that point in its history. But all this was about to change as World War II came to an end. The US sent shockwaves around the world when, on the 6th of August in 1945, we dropped a nuclear bomb on Hiroshima. This was a bomb like no other. It was by far the most dangerous creation of man. This was a nuclear bomb with a yield of about 15,000 tons of TNT, yet the bomb was only 9,000 pounds. It would have required over 2,000 bombs of equal weight of TNT to do the damage this one bomb named Little Boy did. Little Boy immediately leveled the city of Hiroshima and set the place on fire with heat radiating from the center of the explosion, which measured about 100 million degrees Celsius. That is 5 times the temperature at the center of the sun. 80,000 people died immediately, but the number later increased to 140,000 when more people died from radiation poisoning. 3 days later, the US dropped another nuclear bomb on Nagasaki, and devastation followed yet again. The Soviet Union was terrified. Even though they had always been allies with the US in the 2 Great Wars, they made it their #1 priority to develop their own nuclear weapon. Their fear was that the US may one day attack them using this very same weapon, and they did not want to be sitting ducks. The Soviet Union wanted to match the power of the United States. This then set off a chain of events that would shape the world even to this day. President Nikita Khrushchev of the USSR appointed physicist Igor Kurchatov to lead the research on uranium enrichment, plutonium production, and chain reactions. The program also relied on espionage and captured German scientists to obtain crucial information and technology from the Manhattan Project, which was the American codename for the group that built the nuclear bomb Little Boy. In August of 1949, just 4 years after Hiroshima, the USSR successfully tested its first atomic bomb, known as First Lightning or RDS-1, at the Semipalatinsk test site in Kazakhstan. This was a time when the US was leading the creation of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, now known as NATO. Countries such as Italy and Germany, that previously fought against the US, had now become allies to America. But the Soviet Union was now the arch rival of the United States. The world was in fear. Anything could happen at this point, and no one would be safe if these two countries decided to go to war against each other. This was the beginning of the Cold War. The United States now had to up its game and make even more powerful nuclear weapons. On the other side, the Soviet Union was also rushing to make more nukes and make them more powerful, creating a deadly race and competition to see who could create the most nukes to defend themselves. The Soviet Union continued to develop and test nuclear weapons of various types and sizes, including thermonuclear bombs, intercontinental ballistic missiles, and submarine-launched missiles. By the time of its dissolution in 1991, the Soviet Union had conducted 715 nuclear tests and possessed about 45,000 nuclear warheads. Russia inherited most of the Soviet nuclear arsenal and continues to develop new nuclear weapons and delivery systems, such as the hypersonic Avangard glide vehicle and the Poseidon underwater drone. Currently, nothing is more terrifying than the United States and Russia going to war. It would be a war guaranteed to destroy a good portion of the world, as both sides have developed mechanisms to respond swiftly and maximally in case of an attack from the other. Like a game of chess, the US and Russia have set up systems for nuclear attack and defenses that counter the strategy of the other country. Back then, one way the US could win this game was to cheat. By this, I mean carrying out a preemptive strike. Striking first and striking unexpectedly would give the US a critical advantage, and they just may be able to take out Russia without suffering a counterattack. A preemptive strike would be devastating, and Russia knew they had to come up with a defensive strategy that was 100% guaranteed to work. Many crazy ideas were considered. After all, it was the Cold War era, and no idea was too crazy during this time. Having nuclear weapons was bad enough, but Russia thought the only way to scare the US was to make a bomb so powerful that no one would dare consider messing with them. It was outlandish and outright dangerous, but these were desperate times, so Project AN-602 was a go. This bomb, now popularly known as Tsar Bomba or the King of Bombs, holds the record for the most powerful bomb ever made. It is a 3-stage thermonuclear bomb with a yield of 50 megatons of TNT. To put that in perspective, it is over 3,000 times more powerful than the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. This bomb was so powerful that windows of houses 1,000 miles away from the epicenter shattered. Even the Soviets were not prepared for the explosion. The message was loud and clear. The Russians were not to be messed with. But don't let this bomb impress you so much. While it was immensely powerful, there is a good reason why the United States never made a bomb this big. It was simply useless. The only purpose it served was a demonstration of force. But as a weapon, there was no way of using it. This colossal bomb weighed 75 tons, a weight that is equal to that of 44 cars combined. That is a lot of weight to put on any intercontinental ballistic missile. Since there is no ICBM powerful enough to transport it over to the US, the only way to deploy it would be with a large transport aircraft, which are very easy to shoot down and destroy. Realizing this disadvantage, the Soviets ended the Tsar Bomba project and never produced another one. They had to go back to the drawing board and figure out a better doomsday device. One outrageous idea was rumored to be a ship loaded with nuclear explosives. This ship would hypothetically roam the waters between the US and Russia, and would detonate if the US struck Russia. The explosives on this ship would be so great that there would be no way for the US to contain the damage that it would do to America, and potentially to themselves. And what would happen if this ship got hijacked? Their own weapons used against them. Again, the Russians figured this was a ridiculous idea, as it had the potential to hurt them just as badly as their potential enemies. What they needed was a dead man's hand. It was not a new idea, but it had never been used on as large a scale as they were about to. A dead man's hand is a defensive strategy in which one has a way of eliminating an enemy in case the enemy succeeds in taking you out. It is like holding the switch to a bomb that only stays safe as long as you are alive. Once you are dead, the switch is released and the bomb explodes to kill everyone around you. This is exactly what the Soviets built. The Russian Deadhand, also known as the perimeter system, ensures that if Russia goes down, then the world will go down with it. Thousands of sensors strategically positioned throughout Russia continuously monitor various indicators of nuclear activity. If these sensors detect signs of a nuclear strike on Russian territory, the Deadhand system automatically triggers a response, unleashing a barrage of missiles aimed at the United States and its major allies. What makes the Deadhand system particularly unsettling is its autonomous nature, operating without the need for human intervention once activated. It collects seismic, light, radioactive, and air pressure data with which it accurately determines if Russia has been attacked by a nuclear bomb. But that is not enough. The next thing the perimeter checks for is the military command. It accesses all military commands to ensure that the Russian military is still operational. If it cannot establish that there is a competent military structure left, then it will make decisions to destroy the United States autonomously. The system works by sending a command rocket across the country, which transmits launch orders to the nuclear silos, even if there is radio jamming. In the 1990s, a top-ranking official revealed the existence of this doomsday device. He expressed concern that the Russian government was hiding this information and believed the existence of such a dangerous device should be shared, not hidden. Russia continues to keep it a secret, although it is now general knowledge that the device exists. Modifications have been made several times to the perimeter to make it better and foolproof if the inevitable were to ever occur. Oddly, this device is doing more good than evil. Without a device like this, war between Russia and the US would have happened. Russia is less concerned about the US attacking because they are assured that the US will never get away with it. This has helped the Russian military be less aggressive toward the US, unlike in the 1950s and 60s. There have been several times in history when the US and Russia, or the Soviet Union at the time, came close to nuclear war, either by accident or by miscalculation. The Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962 was one of those times. It was the most dangerous confrontation of the Cold War, when the US discovered that the Soviet Union had secretly deployed nuclear missiles in Cuba, just 90 miles from Florida. The US imposed a naval blockade around the island and demanded the removal of the missiles, while the Soviet Union insisted on its right to defend Cuba. For 13 days, the world was on the brink of nuclear war, until a peaceful resolution was reached through diplomatic negotiations. Both sides agreed to withdraw their missiles from Cuba and Turkey, and to establish a direct hotline between Washington and Moscow to prevent future crises. For the good of both countries, the US and Russia would rather use this hotline to communicate and reach peaceful resolutions than attack each other. Certainly, the relationship between both countries is not great currently, but it would take very extreme circumstances for the US to attack Russia. The respect the US has for Russia is one that was earned by being a danger to everyone, and things are unlikely to change anytime soon.